you find yourself walking through the last hallway of the dungeon. You reach the final door. It's locked. What do you do?
No, I think we're good. I think we've got enough loot. We can head back.
There's a menace. You feel the menacing presence behind the door. There's definitely something there for you.
No, I mean, I've gotten enough gold. I think we've, did what we needed to do, so we'll head back.
Magically the hallway closes up and you can't escape. There's only the door left. That's all you can do. Just go through the door.
Oh, okay. I guess we'll just go through the door? Yikes. Don't you hate it when game masters kind of leave players without much of a choice? Welcome to our channel. My name is Anthony Darkson.
And I'm rolling Sly Shadow.
And together, we are the Twin Dragons.
Today we're going to be going over Game Master tips to help you out from preventing that previous scenario from happening. One of the most important things for a Game Master to do is preparation. Getting ready for the adventure. Players truly can see that your lack of preparedness or over-preparedness comes through in the actual adventure.
So, how much preparation is too little preparation? When you feel maybe overconfident that you'll be fine just winging it. It'll be fine. What's the worst that can happen? Sometimes when we feel like we've got a good understanding of the content, but we don't read ahead, or we don't take some notes, or put a little reminders for yourself on different situations and what could happen, you might find yourself stuck when something goes askew during session.
Some things that under preparation that may occur are obviously unprepared for an encounter. Let's say the party finally reaches a place that you wanted them to, and the big baddie's just not ready to fight the party. How does that look? Players bursting into a room and the big baddie's just sitting there having a drink and reading a fine book, not even knowing that the players were there. That's not going to look very good for that big baddie. So the baddie needs to be prepared, and only the game master can have him prepared.
What if you didn't prepare for that encounter at all, and you don't know if it's balanced yet? Because you didn't think that your group was going to get as far as they did. And now you're on the fly, having to build the encounter, and you don't know if you're going to just make it too strong, or you're going to end in a really tough fight, or if you've just made it too weak and your party's just going to roll over them.
Underpreparedness could actually also affect the story in very sad ways sometimes. If you don't read ahead on a pre-made campaign, you may not know where the story's going to go, and you may put yourself or say something to the party that later you may have to retcon, because then you realize, oops, they weren't supposed to have that information, or they needed some information before that they never got. And now the party's either stuck or heading straight to the big baddie's castle when that's like not even a couple of chapters away.
We find that in a pre-made campaign, under preparation can cause issues, not just in the moment, but definitely down the road.
Now on the opposite end, over preparation can lead to some tense situations between the game master and the players. Such as the players skipping a lot of content that the DM spent time preparing. How is that going to make the game master feel? If he spent so much time, hours upon hours, on the story of this little village, just for the players to skip the village because they decide, we don't need to stop there, and they press on.
Over preparation can also lead to something we're going to talk about a little bit later, such as railroading your players to go into what you prepared because you're worried that if they go into something you're not prepared for, it could create a negative impact on their experience.
And also, sometimes players, even though they truly enjoy the world that you build for them and the experience you're giving them, sometimes they don't care about the color of the curtains in the boss's dungeon.
Some of us do.
Not all. It's really hard to find that perfect center, that balance. And that just comes with experience. It's just going to take time. I would caution on the side of over preparation than under preparation, in my opinion. It's always easier to dial back than it is to try to catch up.
As I mentioned before, where we feel the balance lies is that when you're in a pre-made campaign, it's okay to over-prepare a little bit more because you need to know what's around that next corner. Unlike a campaign that you are creating yourself, you utilize your own creative influence to make those adjustments in the moment. So it's okay to be a little bit less prepared for something you've just designed and created.
For your own campaigns, obviously let your creativity flow, and you have more leniency to improvise. Where in a pre-made campaign, improvising could lead to misinformation. Another great tip for game masters is to bring up social contracts and expectations. Let the players know what you expect of them, as well as they should let you know what they expect of you.
Before you start rolling those dice, the best time to talk about these expectations is during session 0.
Now, session 0 can be something that's done at your first group meeting or over messages. One of the important things about session 0 to go over is session frequency. The importance of having a discussion. How often are you guys going to meet to play? Is it once a week, every other week, once a month? For how long? So the players have a good understanding and they can make a better set schedule. That way, less people are missing out when the excitement starts.
Another great thing to go over is the maturity level of your adventure. There may be some tones or scenarios that might make people feel uncomfortable. So it's best that you make sure that your parties feel comfortable with these different types of situations.
Or give your players a chance to bring up and actually talk about some fears they may have. You don't really want to have an adventure where the big baddie's a huge spider and someone's suffering from arachnophobia. Another great thing to actually bring up to your players is for them to know what your expectations are when it comes to table technology. Will you allow your players to have phones and tablets at the table, as long as they're using it for the game? What are your expectations on the focus of the players? No texting and talking at the table? Taking phone calls away from the table to not disrupt the other players that are deep and engrossed in the dungeon that they are currently in?
As a dungeon master, it can be a little disheartening when you see one of your players playing Candy Crush while you're trying to describe an amazing situation to try to drive that excitement with everybody at the table.
And game masters, you're not excluded from this. And for the greatest of all things to truly get down on concrete, snacks and who's responsible for them. No game session is complete without snacks. And for everyone to understand who's bringing what to the table, and I mean snacks, is very important. If the Dungeon Master is going to be hosting, then wouldn't it be appreciative of the players bringing the drinks and snacks? Or vice versa. If one of the players is hosting, still have have the game master bring some snacks, or just leave the game master responsible for the game's management.
I think it's important to discuss this because you want to make sure that anything that is brought to the session is enjoyable and available for everyone at the table. Keeping in mind things such as possible allergies or drink preferences, make sure everybody feels included.
Alcohol is optional. Another expectation possibly for the players is to assist the DM. The Dungeon Master or Game Master has so much on their plate, trying to wrangle up the players, keep on top of the story, as well as making sure that the encounter is ready to go as soon as you bust through that door. Maybe, if a question comes up on the table, have one of the players, the more experienced players, step in and assist the Game Master.
Something to be careful for also are players who are experienced Game Masters themselves. Sometimes they may try to heavily influence a ruling at the table because they believe that they know what the right decision should be.
The Game Master truly does need to put that expectation out there of what the roles of the players are, regardless of their experience. The table is owned by the Game Master. His rule is the final verdict and law.
Now that doesn't mean you can't take what they're saying into advisement, but that expectation is when you say, this is how I'm going to rule, that's how it has to be. Another topic we want to discuss is to fudge the dice or not to fudge the dice.
What we mean is the Game Master has the option, and mostly recommended to, roll his dice behind a screen. The players don't know what the actual rolls are. They're trusting the Game Master to tell them what he sees. But should the Game Master give them the correct die roll, or should he fudge it?
This can actually be a pretty hot topic among dungeon masters
And players.
Sometimes players may want to see your rolls. Maybe they're new players or new to your table, and maybe they don't have trust in the dungeon master or the game master. And maybe they want to see the rolls because they want to make sure everything is fair.
Counter argument. Yes, you can build that trust with the players. But no, there are times and reasons that the Game Master may want to bluff on the dice rolls. Situations like the story and the momentum of that story. If the players are having a great time and the momentum is pushing forward and everyone's excited, one bad roll can really put a damper on that and ruin the day.
So it's up to you as the game master to decide, do I hide my dice or do I allow my players to see them? But whichever you decide, make sure that's the what you stick with throughout the rest of the session.
My opinion is always hide the dice. Let them trust you. Build that trust through story and a good time. If the players have a good enough time, they won't worry about what you're really rolling.
In my opinion is, know your players and your audience. Again, if they are new players to your table, they may have a different view on this topic, and you just want to make sure that you bring that up front with them in how you handle dice rolls.
But in the end, it's the Game Master's decision.
Always. As I said, this can be a hot topic. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.
Another important thing for Game Masters to think about is party management. Things like party size and having a story and experience that highlights all the players at your table.
One important aspect of player management is the size of your party. How many players you have in your session should be equal to your experience. starting as a new game master with 5+ players can be challenging. But I have seen experienced game masters able to handle even larger sizes from 8 to 10 players at one time.
One of the challenges of having a party that's too large is sharing the spotlight. Sometimes at a table you may have 1 or 2 players that hog the spotlight. They may be adamant, active, the celebrities of the table.
More likely, they're probably playing bards.
But what happens is the enjoyment of some of the other players, especially the more quieter ones, may diminish.
A good tip is during the session, right after your more charismatic players spoke up, ask the more quieter players, what would they do?
Always take the opportunity to poke and prod the more quieter players. Try to bring out their character a little bit more. Bring them closer to the table so they feel like they're more part of the story than just a sidekick character.
Sometimes you can actually create specific scenarios or situations that require those quieter players certain skill sets that they may possess.
Let's say one of the quieter players is a sage, a scholar, and the louder players are bards. Allow the sage or scholar type character to have to do a research at a library so they can roll and to see if they find that magic scroll that was hidden in an ancient library. That brings up why one of the preparation is actually one of the best things you can do as a game master, because you can prepare stories, events, and situations and scenarios for those quieter players that you've been experiencing.
Another thing to be aware of is when you have a larger size party and your party decides to split up.
Inexperienced game masters may have a problem with this due to the fact that as you're talking to the current active scene players, the other players are just sitting around. Sometimes they'll bust out a phone, sometimes they'll twiddle their thumbs, and sometimes they just won't pay attention at all. And they'll feel kind of left out and bored if they're excluded from what's going on at that moment.
One way to combat this is by setting a time limit that you spend on each of the groups. This will allow equal distribution of time for all the players to have the most experience and fun possible.
And one of the big things for game masters to consider is the possibility of railroading your players.
Railroading means that you are taking away your players' decisions and choices to what they're going to do next.
Now, in a tabletop role-playing game, it is a back and forth between the game masters and the players to build and create a story that makes a great time. Taking away the ability of the players to make any form of decision at all is considered railroading.
As you saw in the beginning of this video, an example of what happens when you're caught in a situation where you have an expectation of what's going to happen next and your players decide to do something different. What do you do?
Now, if you're at that final stretch and you're at that boss battle and the players just decide to turn around and walk away, what can you do? One of the things you can do is, from the very beginning, before you even get to this point, have your players understand consequences. Insert into your story that to every choice that the players do make, there are consequences. Now, don't make every choice a bad choice, but mold the story around those consequences. As an example, if the players decide to skip a village, even though they knew there were raiders in the area, later down the road, let them catch word that that village was raided and many people were killed. So they know that their experiences and actions have consequences.
Another situation could be your players need to infiltrate a mansion, and you only prepared for them to go through the front door. But your party was a little more creative than you anticipated, and decided to stack a bunch of crates and try to enter from the top floor.
Don't be discouraged by your players taking a different route to complete your puzzle. Encourage them. Come up with something that will challenge them. Even though they found the solution to one problem, it may present other problems. They may enter through a window on the top floor just to find out that that's where the guards sleep.
The last thing you want to do is discourage your players from finding creative solutions. That's when you as a game master really start to learn how to improvise. And that's okay, because you will create amazing experiences and situations the more you practice improvising in the moment.
And don't forget to reward your players for their creativity, for solving a problem that you didn't even know that was probably a solution to it.
These are just a few examples of different tips for game masters that'll help you create a great experience for both your players and yourself.
So comment down below. Let us know some of the tips that you follow.
If you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. Also, don't forget to subscribe as we have more content coming out soon. Until then, see you next time.